So, good morning to everyone who is with us this morning to hear about protecting your business and building trust with your customers. This webinar is part of our real-time solutions series brought to you by the Apple Valley, Burnsville, Hastings, Lakeville, and River Heights Chamber of Commerce. We are in our fourth series of webinars, and I want to say a special thank you to our series sponsor, Doherty Melinda Solfest Hills and Bauer Law Firm in Apple Valley. Doherty Melinda is a great partner, and we are grateful for their sponsorship, which helps our chambers maintain the technology needed to provide these programs. Some housekeeping items. All of our participants are in the attendee room, so you'll be muted, but we encourage you to use the chat features. Please go ahead and post your questions, and we will get to those at the end of the program as time allows. But I also want you to know if you submitted questions, I had a little technological difficulty retrieving the questions you submitted through registration. So if you submitted a question, please resubmit it through the chat and we'll make sure to get to it. My name is Jennifer Harmoning. I'm president of the Burnsville Chamber of Commerce. Our speaker today is Lisa Gemtrude of the Better Business Bureau of Minnesota and North Dakota. The BBB is located right here in Burnsville. Lisa provides overall management and leadership of the Foundation and Community Relations Division for the BBB. With 20 years at BBB, her work has included investigations, government affairs, and consumer and business education services. Gemtrude holds a master's degree in administration of justice from Southern Illinois University with an emphasis in alternative dispute resolution and white-collar crime. She is past president of the Society of Consumer Affairs Professionals, Minnesota chapter, and she is a graduate of the Leadership Twin Cities 2018 program and chairs the Coalition Against Marketplace Fraud, a regional law enforcement group. So with that, I am going to hand this over to Lisa and enjoy the program.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, everyone, on this beautiful June Wednesday. So we're going to hop right in. You know, I think you're here today because you want to learn about your business and help fortify it to be as strong as it can be, as resilient as it can be, under changing market circumstances. I'm delighted to be part of that and part of the series. So thanks to all of the chamber partners for having BBB today. So this is how we look at it. Have you heard that quote, your comeback will be stronger than your setback? We really love that. We think that's very appropriate for our circumstances that we've had thus far in 2020. So with that frame of mind, position your company as one that's pushing its comeback right now. Here's why we're talking about this topic today, why it's relevant. It's important for the resiliency of your company to decrease the likelihood that you will be victimized by a scam. That's important. You can't have anything else happen this year or any year. Let's take that off the plate. I think we've all seen the memes going around about what's going to happen in July, what's going to happen in August. But let's not have the answer to that be, and now we lost money in a scam. So we're going to talk about some of the top scams that are happening right now and the ones that we see pervasively year after year. It's just important to have that little red flag in the back of your mind that those things go on. And in today's circumstances, even more so. The second piece of what we're going to talk about and cover today is increasing trust with your stakeholders. Not just because it's nice or because it's the right thing to do. Trust improves business from the very most pragmatic financial level. And really the way we're looking at it now is it has everything to do with your viability. So let's start with scams targeting business. I know that sounds like a little bit of a heavy topic, but let's not look at it that way. This is an empowering message. We want you to just be armed with some information to make good decisions for your company and to talk to your coworkers or employees about what to look for. So the current environment is ripe for scams, and you might be able to guess why, both for consumers as a whole, and we are all consumers, and for businesses. Businesses are on edge right now, many of them. I can't project that on all of you. Some of you are doing very well. Some of you are struggling. Some of you are on the uptick. but you're all trying to lay the foundation for the next step in your business. Everybody's answering their phones, right? You have to, you want it to be a business proposition. Of course, scam artists towards businesses use phone all the time because they know you answer your phone. You might do business with someone or an entity, even if it feels a little bit weird because you're desperate for the business. I want to be cautious using the word desperate, but you might be more inclined to take a risk. And there are just so many distractions. The way scam artists work, it's very much a science. I know we all like to think that we'll be able to spot a scam, but they are just so sophisticated, especially the business scams, that we have to be especially careful with that. And when we're distracted or we're in a hurry, we don't always make clear, careful decisions about what may or may not be a legitimate business proposition. So one way to look at this, and I don't have time to go into all of the research, but BBB with partners has done a number of research projects over the years. One of them, and I'll just mention this little piece of it, we found with individuals and business owners too, with consumers and business owners too, that you are a little more likely to have what's called an optimism bias. Or another aspect to that is what we call you'll see on your screen, the invulnerability illusion. Basically, that means you're likely to believe it isn't going to happen to you. It's a natural response to think, I'm not going to be targeted by a scam. It won't happen to me. Good things will happen to me. Good things are going to happen. And yes, of course, we want to take on that attitude in our lives. But what that does set up for us is like a false level of protection around our business that doesn't actually exist. We have to take it up a notch in terms of our radar of looking around and questioning things more than we have in the past. The optimism bias is a very real thing. It can't happen to me. It won't happen to my business. So planting the seed that you'll want to peel back that layer, mention it regularly to your teams at work. I would say at least twice a year. So it's not something you have to cover daily, but when you're going, you need a staff meeting topic. This is a good one. Put it on your rotation about, hey, let's be on the lookout for business scams and have those conversations about what people have seen, what they're worried about, what didn't seem right, and educate each other. A few scam research tidbits. This research was done about a year and a half ago. This is the most recent research that we have on it. Close to 67% of businesses feel more at risk to being targeted by a scam than they did 3 years ago. So there is, perception and reality of the scam risk going up. I think that's really an interesting one for us to contemplate today. About 13% of businesses reported harm. So that's financial loss, loss of information, loss of reputation. None of you listening want that for your company. You don't want to be part of that statistic. So scams do pose a significant risk to businesses. They generally result in a higher monetary loss than they do scams targeting consumers. And scams can impact any type of business, from small to large, industry, length of time in business. So just remember that it can happen to you. Next, being aware and being empowered about these scams. I'm going to list off a few of those that are the most popular right now. And the ones that pose the most risk, the most likelihood for monetary loss, reputation loss, or information loss. Under the riskiest scams, for those of you who are watching online, bank or credit card imposters tend to be the ones where you lose the most money. Fake directory listings and advertising scams, those have been common for as long as I have been part of this industry. Certainly, 20 years ago, it was yellow page ads, but, for those of you who remember those. But now There's all sorts of types of industry listings, online listings, and people try to fly in under the radar and send fake bills or call you on the phone and ask if you want to re-up again for this particular listing. And right now, when things are very competitive, you have a smaller pool of consumers who are actively buying. That's growing, which is great. And you want to be out there so they pick you. Be particularly careful with advertising scams. Fake invoice and supplier bill scams is another one. You don't want your staffer who's handling the bills to be in automatic mode where they're just paying all the invoices that come in. So a different type of checks and balances or a team meeting about that to verify that they're actual invoices. If you don't already have steps in place to do that, now is a good time to do so. A few other popular scams. Worthless problem solving. I know that's sort of a funky title, but really that just means someone is trying to have you pay for something you could easily do or find on your own. Fake checks from customers, government agency imposters. If you ever want to know more about this, you can talk to me afterwards, call the BBB, and we will help identify some other things that may or may not be legitimate that you have experienced at your business. Happy to always help with that. And in this last 6, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, the really hot scams right now targeting business are anything related to disaster loans or business relief loans. We're not surprised. That's exactly what scam artists do. They take a hot topic and they try to look legitimate, to capitalize on confusion, and to provide their scam as a solution when businesses need a solution. So be very careful with any type of loan. Go through legitimate sources and go through the legitimate source where you're the one being proactive and reaching out, not responding to something that comes to you directly. The business email compromise scam is still a problem. The fake emails from CEOs trying to get into different aspects of the financials. I know that's been on the news off and on. That continues to be a problem. And then there's virus and IT scams. That's primarily focusing on the staffers within a business, because so many people are working, most people are still working virtually. If you are in a business services type of job, and they're trying to capitalize on people who are having trouble with their technology and trying to get money in that way. So a couple of tips. Here are 4 things that you can do with your teams. Train and inform. Even a quick staff meeting about, hey, let's talk about business scams for 10 minutes is going to go a long way as a preventative measure. Number 2, verifying invoices and payments. Again, that's connecting the invoice with an actual product or service that you requested or bought for your company, and not handling those completely independent from one another. Be tech savvy. That's the tip around knowing what is or isn't a virus / scam solicitation that's coming up as a pop-up on your computer screen, and know who you're dealing with. This one is tougher. Businesses, we need to open our arms wide and look broadly at all of the possibilities of who you can do business with. We love new customers. We want to know more people. We want to increase our stakeholders group. This is extremely important. But where you can verify that it's a legitimate company, a real consumer, a real check, it's important to take some steps. So wanting to highlight that as well. So why would you report if you've been contacted by a scammer, whether or not you've been victimized? If you've been contacted by somebody who you think is trying to scam your company, we'd want you to notify BBB. We can get it to the right law enforcement agencies. If you want to go directly to law enforcement, we do recommend local police and the Federal Trade Commission. The FTC actually has a great big portal that houses a lot of scam information and trends that all the different law enforcement agencies use, and that helps us you know, BBB is not law enforcement. We're a nonprofit agency, but we work with law enforcement all the time and the media to help warn others. So just think, if you take the time to report it, this helps others. And I want you to feel good about that. You know, we're all in this together. I'm actually a little afraid now that that phrase gets used too much these days, but we are all in it together and can help support one another. If you have been victimized by a scam, the best thing to do is report it as fast as possible. Every day that goes by that it isn't reported, the likelihood of recouping any type of loss just disappears. Now, moving along to the flip side of our conversation, you know, scams are a big deal. Now you know, it's back on your radar. And now let's talk about lifting up, building trust, getting more confidence from your stakeholders, getting more people to do business with you so you can focus on the actual business at hand. BBB and many others, it's very easy to find, quick Google search, lots of research on trust and why and how that helps your business. If you can build trust, financial gains they're likely to happen. You know, the one and done model of business has never been a good one, and trust, the concept of it, is getting really popular right now, which I guess is great. BBB's been doing it for over 100 years, and we love that it's getting popular. So how important is trust? Well, I'll just hit a couple of key points from one of our surveys. The first question, how important do you believe customer trust is to your business? And with all the businesses surveyed, and we do national surveys, 9.5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Businesses are saying 9.5 is the number that they believe customer trust is extremely important to their business. But do they have a plan in place to increase trust? So you think, for your business, do you have a plan in place to increase trust? You know, right now, people are putting together their safety plans, you know, for welcoming people back into the workplace or to the retail store, et cetera. And that's great. That's important. But that's not the only thing that you can do. That's something you should do and need to do. But you can do more than that. And that's a good conversation, a good annual conversation with your team, specifically a line item discussion around trust. What are we doing around how to help people trust us more? Who are we aligning with? How are we portraying ourselves in social media? How are we listening and responding to customer complaints, etc.? The plans look different for each business, but you can and should have a plan. Second survey question, how important is it to consumers that they trust a company before they'll do business with them? This is also high. We're regularly, constantly surveying consumers, and 8.5, oh, nope, I lied, 8.6%, or excuse me, 8.6 from on 1 to 10 scale is saying this is incredibly important. I'm going to choose a company that I trust over one that I don't trust. It's competitive. It's competitive. The more trustworthy that you are pushing out into the community, that vibe, the trustworthiness vibe, gives you an edge on the competition. It's as simple as that. Without going into tons of detail, BBB has done another study on the 5 gestures of trust. We have an entirely different training on this, but I did want to mention it today because these are fact-based gestures that would make a great cornerstone for your individual trust building plan. So I'll mention them here. Be honest, be transparent, be proactive, be humble, and be equitable. These 5 gestures can look different for every company. But if you're taking notes today and you're thinking about what you might do to build trust in your organization, I highly recommend these as your bucket categories to create a plan, even a short one, a few things underneath each category. Be honest, be transparent, be proactive, be humble, and be equitable. So let's talk for a few minutes more about tips. Tips that you can use today to build trust in your organization and in the community. The tips are communicate, learn from others, revisit, be consistent, and form partnerships. So I'll give a couple of examples, and then we can turn it over to, I'll turn it back to Jennifer and for some questions. So communicate. I don't want you to look at this and think, oh, okay, Lisa, thank you. That's obvious. Of course, we're going to communicate. Yes, and communicating is a two-way street. So what are you saying to others, but also what are the inputs? Where are you looking to listen from others? A lot of people won't listen to customers who criticize them. And this gets delicate. But the input from the people who are criticizing your company for different reasons are the people you should probably be listening to the most. So inputs, outputs. Learn from others. You know, who are you looking at in your industry? How are they handling situations of trust? How are they portraying themselves? How are they building their brand? How are they being inviting and humble and transparent, like the gestures we just talked about? Revisiting and retooling. This, if we learned one thing in 2020 so far, it's change happens, and change happens quickly. Take your plans, whether it's your return to work safe plan, or if it's your trust building plan, and be prepared to revisit and modify. So that's a friendly reminder that these things should be fluid, and you don't feel like it's okay, I did that plan and now it goes in a drawer, because these are wealth building plans. These aren't philosophical plans that don't go anywhere. If you use them and are paying attention to them, they are wealth building growth plans. Fourth, be consistent. So whatever your policies and procedures are around lifting up your brand and creating trust, apply them the same to everyone. We can't have, where in some cases you do this set of checking and researching, and in this set of cases you don't. It's actually easier on your staff. It's easier on your record keeping if you're just applying all of your policies the same way. And lastly, forming partnerships. One quick story just to highlight how this can work for you. We heard of a bar, and what they were doing is they had some certain safety protocols in place, just based on COVID protections, normal stuff that we're hearing about right now. But because of their industry, and they were on a main drag in a downtown where there were a lot of bar hoppers. So people, the customers, the consumers were going from business to business. They weren't just staying in one. It made more sense for that group of bars to collaborate on having the same or a very similar plan for each of their businesses, because they recognized that they had a moving consumer and it'd be confusing to a consumer to have one rule in one place and one in another, and then one in another when you went 4 places in the same night. So that was really interesting to me, and I wanted to share it with this group, because that's a unique collaboration. The same might work for retail stores along a main drag where people are shopping on a Saturday and they're weaving in and out of retail. So one thing to think about there. So those are some thought starters. The 5 tips on how to build trust. You also got the 5 gestures. So with that, I hope that you are past your setback and that you are launched on your comeback. And BBB is always ready to help the business community. And I'm going to thank you for listening, and I'm going to pass it back to Jennifer.
Lisa, thank you so much. So much great information. So I'll throw in just a couple questions here to follow up before we wrap up. I really liked what you said about know who you're dealing with. And I'm wondering, this may get too specific, but just share whatever you can. we had an experience at the chamber of people spoofing information they find on our website. So I don't even know if that's the right technical term, sorry. But they basically, because we have volunteers, so we have officers, right? We have treasurer, we have chair of the board and things like that. And those people's contact information was on our website. So they emailed our volunteer treasurer and said they were me and said they needed a check for something or payment for something. And, thankfully, our volunteers don't actually write checks, so that wasn't an issue. But just wondering if you have any advice for people on kind of protecting your data on, we want to be accessible. We want people to be able to contact us, but, keeping information safe or, so two sides of that coin. Is there anything we can do with the information on our website and still be accessible? And then the protocols to know who we're dealing with, have the safety protocols in place to deal with that?
That's a super question, and it is a little bit complicated. The quick answer is that's a good example of business email compromise where they're pretending to be you. Mm-hmm. One major tip, and we don't look at emails. We don't look at the name on an email very closely, especially somebody you're used to seeing an email from. But one of the main tips is for everyone to just take that millisecond to look closely at what that email address says, because it's usually like one letter off, or it adds a 1, or there's a dash or a dot or something that's not exactly right. And that's how they can spoof or pretend or phish and pretend that they're you. Yeah. So that's one way that they can check it. I would always advocate, or BBB would always advocate as well, that it's better to be transparent. So don't feel like you shouldn't put your contacts on your website. It adds to your legitimacy. It makes you more accessible. But that's the trade-off, is that people can pretend that they know people in your organization. That's where those staff meetings are really important about, hey, did this person contact you and this feels a little bit off, or this isn't a normal request, and keep that line of communication open.
Right. Well, and you just hit on my other question, which was how often to do the staff updates and training, because I think what happens is, we have either something happens or we watch a webinar like this and we have a staff meeting and we talk about it. And then all of a sudden it's 6 months later and it's like, okay, what's creeping in the meantime? So any advice on that?
Yeah, it is. Jennifer, honorable, wholesome, law-abiding business owners, business leaders, and citizens don't automatically think, ooh, that might be a scam. It isn't how our brains are wired, so it's not natural. So forgive yourself if that's not the first thing you think of, or if you have ever been victimized by a scam. But that's why this type of training and coaching is important, just to keep it on the radar.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll share / ask is an awkward one for me that we get fairly regularly, meaning a couple times a year, is I get a business calling me and saying, hey, someone reached out to me that I've been selected as, the Burnsville Small Business of the Year or for the Best of Burnsville list. Well, in researching these things, a lot of times those are companies that just sell awards, right? So they're like, you've been selected, and here for $75, you can have this plaque saying that it's always awkward for me, because how do I tell this awesome business person that this isn't a selection criteria, this is a promotion and marketing thing? And I don't know how much of that you guys see.
We do actually. I didn't mention it today, but I could have. We call them Vanity Awards. And it is a thing. And it's not where someone has legitimately won a contest, or it is merely a promotional. Now you have to buy your own award, and it's $60 for this, or it's $45 for this, or it's unfortunate because we're deserving.
Right. Exactly.
People want to be recognized. So in delivering that message, you could always push it back to BBB, for example, and say there are fake awards. There are things called Vanity Awards, Vanity Award scams, and to check the legitimacy first, even though we know you are deserving.
Exactly. Awesome. Well, we're hitting up on 8:30 here, and we always pride ourselves on wrapping up on time. I could probably talk to you about this for quite some time, as I'm sure our attendees would have more questions too. Thank you, Lisa, for joining us to share your message. You shared some very valuable information about potential scams and building trust with your customers. I'm so glad this is recorded so I can share it with my employees and others. We have 3 more webinars in this series. The next one will be Wednesday, August 15th with Congresswoman Angie Craig. We are taking a couple Wednesdays off because of the 4th of July holiday here, and we know a lot of people are tied up. So we'll be back on Wednesday, July 15th with Congresswoman Angie Craig. Thanks again to our sponsors at Dr. D. Melinda, Solfest Hills, and Bauer Law Firm. And these webinars are provided in partnership with Apple Valley, Burnsville, Hastings, Lakeville, and River Heights Chamber of Commerce. The recordings will be available on all these partner websites. Thank you again for joining us, and we hope you have a beautiful Chamber of Commerce day. Thank you, Lisa, and thanks to all of you.